Hello viewers and welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't have to miss on any of our interesting videos. Give our videos a thumbs up by tapping on the like button if you like our content, of course, and be part of the commenters squad by sharing your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, for the first time in history, America has a president-elect who is facing pending criminal charges. Now, Donald Trump's victory has raised more questions than answers about the fate of his ongoing legal battles. Like, people are just wondering what is going to happen next. Now that he's president, what next? Now, as President-elect Trump is scheduled to be sentenced on November 26th for his conviction in the hush money trial, questions are being asked. Will he actually face sentencing, or will his new status as president-elect grant him immunity? Now, the Supreme Court's recent ruling on presidential immunity has added another layer of complexity to this case. Now, let's not forget that that's not all. Trump is also facing other federal and state charges, including election interference and financial statement fraud. As president, he could potentially pardon himself, but this would be a highly controversial move that has never ever been done before. Now, people are just wondering what is going to happen next. Will he be held accountable for his actions, or will his presidency shield him from prosecution? All I can just say is that this is not over yet until his last day of trial. And some people are even holding on to some hope to say maybe he might be convicted and maybe Kamala Harris can take over. With that said, let's take a look at these videos. I will be right back.
So Donald Trump is officially president-elect. So what does that mean for all the pending litigation against him? And I actually find this very interesting because we are in uncharted waters because there's never been anybody elected to the presidency that has pending charges against them. Now, in 19 days, on November 26th, President Trump is due in court for sentencing over the hush money trial. Now, a decision will be made on November 12th whether or not this is going to continue going to court, meaning that will Trump be protected under the Supreme Court's ruling of protection and immunity, or is this going to sentencing? Now, if the judge decides to keep his conviction, then Trump is facing up to 4 years in prison. But given that he's president-elect, he could also receive a lesser sentence of something like community service or just a fine, of which his lawyers would probably appeal whatever that decision was. Now, he's also still facing other federal and state charges. Let's talk about federal first. Now, federally speaking, he was indicted by a grand jury on mishandling of classified documents and 2 additional indictments based on January 6th. Now, specifically over the federal crimes, Trump could possibly grant himself a self-pardon and act of clemency, but that would be highly controversial as it's never been done before. However, the Constitution says that a president can pardon federal crimes but not state crimes, so he would still be on the hook for the racketeering case against him in Georgia. And Fani Willis, who was just reelected, plans to continue pursuing charges against President Trump. I'll definitely hit that follow button because this is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. Personally, I think that everything is going to end up being dismissed against him. But however that happens, it's going to be an interesting ride.
You might think that once Donald Trump takes office again in January, all the criminal cases against him have to disappear. And that might not be right. Today we learned that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who brought the only case against Trump to have gone to trial, isn't willing to dismiss those charges. Instead, he told Judge Juan Merchan today that he's willing to stay the proceedings, but he also is willing to take his chances that he could potentially have Trump sentenced in 2029. That would mean almost 15 years between when Trump committed the conduct of which he was convicted and when he could be sentenced in 2029. You're probably asking yourself, well, what about the pardon? Couldn't Trump just pardon himself? Even assuming a president can pardon themselves, which is an open legal question, Donald Trump couldn't pardon himself for any state crime. And this was a state crime tried in a state court. So, could Trump potentially be sentenced in 2029? That's an open question, and one that could even reach the United States Supreme Court in the next Trump presidency.
Just across the water here at West Palm Beach is the home of a convicted felon and the next US president. Of course, they're one and the same, Donald Trump. In fact, he's got a sentencing hearing coming up in 3 weeks' time in New York. As well, we're learning that the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, who's been overseeing those 2 cases, 1, the secret documents held here at Mar-a-Lago, and 2, Donald Trump's apparent interference in the 2020 election, is now looking at winding down both of those cases. I mean, after all, how can the American Department of Justice prosecute the person who is now going to be effectively in charge of the American Department of Justice? We are just beginning to see the implications, and some of the twists and turns that we'll all see with Donald Trump in the White House.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
Donald Trump's election last night is going to fundamentally change and in some cases get rid of the legal cases against him. Let's quickly run through those 4 cases. The first 2 are cases being overseen by the U.S. Department of Justice, specifically Special Counsel Jack Smith. That's the January 6th election interference case here in Washington and the classified documents case down in Florida. A new Trump Department of Justice with a new Attorney General would fire Jack Smith, which Donald Trump has said he wants to do on day 1, and those cases would simply stop being prosecuted and would go away. The third case against Trump is the Georgia election interference case. And while Trump doesn't have the authority as president to dismiss a state case, there is a long-standing federal prohibition on state prosecutors, in this case, Fani Willis down in Georgia, from indicting or charging a sitting president. So there would be a very, very big bar for that case to pass to go forward. Fourth is the 34 felony convictions that Trump has already been convicted of in the Stormy Daniels falsified business records case in New York City. Now, Trump is supposed to be sentenced in that case in 3 weeks' time, and Judge Juan Merchan, who's overseeing that, has said in the past he's not against jailing Donald Trump for these crimes, but now the person he would be sentencing is the would-be and soon-to-be sitting president. And so there would be an incredible amount of pressure for nonviolent crimes, for a crime that Donald Trump has never had a previous conviction, to not put the soon-to-be president in prison. Unclear what would happen in that case, but it is without a doubt that last night's election is going to fundamentally change the legal jeopardy that Donald Trump was facing.
Now, a lot of people are just holding their breath, waiting to see what is going to happen next. In as much as people were waiting to hear the outcome of the president-elect's case on the 26th, it turns out that the judge has again delayed his sentencing. Now, a New York judge again delayed Donald Trump's sentencing in his historical criminal case as he continues to push for the conviction to be tossed. Trump, who was found guilty of 34 felony fraud counts in May, was supposed to be sentenced on 26 November, less than 2 months before his presidential inauguration. Now, his lawyers argue that his conviction should be thrown out on the grounds of presidential immunity and because sentencing would interfere with his duties as president. Now, the Manhattan District Attorney who prosecuted Trump is fighting for the sentencing but has suggested that it could wait until after Trump's second term. On Friday, in what Trump's team is calling a victory, Justice Juan Merchan paused all proceedings until he receives further arguments from both parties in December. But the court is now up against a ticking clock to decide what's next. As Trump's inauguration in late January grows ever closer, in May, a New York jury found Trump guilty on dozens of counts of falsifying business records. Now, the charges stemmed from Trump's efforts to disguise reimbursements to his personal lawyer, who had made a hush money payment to an adult film star to silence her claims of a S encounter with Trump. Now, prosecutors successfully argued that the payoff, which happened just days before the 2016 election, was tantamount to election interference because it kept potentially damaging allegations from voters. Trump has long denied any wrongdoing and cast the case as politically motivated, and he has maintained that he did not have S encounter with the woman. Now, in a decisive win for President Trump, the Hawks Manhattan case is now fully stayed and sentencing is adjourned, said Stephen Zhang, Trump's communications director, on Friday. Since Trump's election, his attorneys have redoubled efforts to clear his conviction. In July, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that presidents have immunity from criminal prosecution for certain official acts undertaken while in office. Now, that ruling stemmed from a battle over Trump's federal election interference case. But Trump's attorneys in his New York criminal trial argue that those protections should extend to this case as well. Now, the sentencing battle was postponed until after the election, which Trump won decisively on 5th November. Now, Trump's lawyer called for the immediate dismissal of this case because he argued that such an outcome was required by the U.S. Constitution and the Presidential Transition Act. But this week, the Manhattan District district attorney fired back, saying that he planned to oppose any dismissal of the conviction, but he also acknowledged the unprecedented constitutional issues at play and floated the idea that Justice Merchan could wait to sentence Trump until after his presidency in 2029. On Friday, Justice Merchan ordered Trump's lawyers to file their full argument for dismissal by 2nd December, several weeks before they had proposed. Now, prosecutors must present their arguments to keep the conviction intact by 9 December, and the judge said it will not accept further reply briefs from either party after those deadlines. Now, prosecutors have argued that the case centers on entirely personal conduct with no relationship whatsoever to any official duty of the presidency. Trump has asked that the verdict be overturned or the case be thrown out entirely if Judge Merchan tosses the conviction. He could order a new trial which would be delayed for at least 4 years until Trump leaves office, or dismiss the indictment altogether. Now, Trump's conviction carries a penalty of up to 4 years in prison. Though first-time offenders normally receive lesser sentences, Trump faced 4 criminal cases since leaving the White House in 2021. Now, Special Counsel Jack Smith is expected to wind down Trump's classified documents case and his federal election interference case due to a Justice Department policy prohibiting the prosecution of a sitting president, and his election interference case in the state of Georgia has been paused as Trump and his co-defendants appeal a decision involving the district attorney who brought the case. To be honest, with the latest developments that we are seeing in Donald Trump's case, it's starting to look like his presidency might shield him from prosecution. The judge has agreed to indefinitely postpone sentencing in the hush money case, which raises questions about whether the case will be put on hold until Trump finishes his presidential term. Now, prosecutors have also argued that the case centers on Trump's personal conduct unrelated to his official duties as president. However, Trump's legal team is pushing so hard to have the verdict overturned or the case dismissed entirely. If the judge tosses the conviction, it could lead to a new trial, which might be delayed until Trump leaves office. Now, the postponement of sentencing is really bringing speculation that the case might be put on hold until Trump's presidential term is over. And this would mean that the case wouldn't be dealt with until after 2028, raising concerns about accountability and the rule of law. Now, it's worth noting that this is not the only case against Trump that's been stalled. Proceedings in the Georgia criminal trial accusing him of conspiring to corrupt the 2020 election results are also on indefinite hold. Now, as we continue to follow this story, let's just wait and see what is going to happen next. But already, I think it is clear what is going to happen because it seems like they are going to wait until his term is over. But what do my viewers have to say? Share your thoughts, your views as well in the comment section. Thank you for always watching and see you in my next video as we bring you another interesting video.